we'll get started. Like I said, thanks for everyone for joining today. This is the Centralina Learns Energy in Action webinar. We have three great panelists for you today, and I'm going to get us kicked off here so we can get to their presentations. My name is Megan Upchurch. I will be your moderator / host today. I am a senior planner here with Centralina Regional Council, and I work in a lot of our mainly focus on our sustainability side of planning. So just a quick overview of the agenda today for those that are new to us. I know several on this call have been to a couple of these as well. So just some quick welcomes, a little bit about what we're doing on our end, and then we'll turn over to the panelists. And then along the way, if you want to drop any questions you have for them in the chat, or you can come off of mute once everyone's done with their presentations, and we'll have an open discussion and Q&A session at the end of all of this. So like I said, this is with Centralina Regional Council. We hold several types of Centralina Learns throughout the year, and we have them posted throughout our social medias, on our website. So please we'll have a couple here at the end of the meeting today too for upcoming on our end. So just always keep a lookout. It's a great resource for planners and local government staff and beyond. This is also, there will be credits today for AICP credits. So thank you. Big shout out to APA-NC for continuing to support us as we are usually have those credits for each of these presentations. We do not have the number for you yet, but that will be added. It'll be sent as a follow-up as soon as we have both the link and the number for you all to get those credits for today. So launching us into kind of what we're doing on the Centralina side right now. Like I said, I work a lot in our sustainability programs. The key one right now is the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant, which is funding, get this to change, which is funding through the EPA. So we received this funding a couple years ago to build essentially two plans for our region. As you can see in this map, it is the Greater Charlotte MSA. So it covers 13 counties, so a little bit outside of the Centralina's 9-county region. We completed our Priority Climate Action Plan in March of 2024 and are actively working on the Comprehensive Climate Action Plan, which will be due here at the end of the year on December 1st. So from the Priority Climate Action Plan, these were the key takeaways, measures, buckets, kind of however you want to kind of view them from that effort about really what carbon reduction and really thinking about sustainable practices in our region. So you can see the first four are highlighted because that's kind of where our conversations today are leaning based on our panelists and their presentations, and kind of how you all can be involved and think about incorporating these practices into your own organizations. We also had to do a preliminary greenhouse gas inventory during this process, in which we will be updating through the comprehensive plan process. And as you can see, transportation and commercial energy, or transportation and energy sector are our key carbon emitters. And like I said, with today's conversations, we'll be kind of talking about ways that you can kind of incorporate reduction measures on your own end and ways that we can in our region and beyond as well. So the purpose of the CCAP, I know there's a lot of planners on the call. This is your typical comprehensive plan. We're just knocking it out a little bit quicker than one usually would with a comprehensive plan due to the shorter deadline, but we're still looking at those long-term goals, strategies that will be the most effectful for our region when we're talking about ways to, it could be incorporating, more greenways, blueways, all the way to, as we're talking about, a TDM program is starting up in our region. So all of these best practices and programs that kind of lean into each other and work with each other will be kind of focuses of not just here are strategies, but also highlighting these actual implementations that are happening around our region. And then here, with the slides after this webinar as well, but these are just some ways to get involved if you're interested in just kind of listening along, or if you're in the region and want to participate in some upcoming meetings or invite us to your own, just some opportunities there. So that's my side of kind of how this all ties together on the Centralina side. And then we have the three panelists today, Dory Larson, Don Moreland, and Ian Bailey, who are here to talk to us about actual ways to get involved with their own organizations and information that they can share with you all on, kind of these energy and action, best practices, next steps, and kind of who to get in contact if you have questions directly on these matters. So on that note, I will go ahead and turn it over to Dory with her presentation.
Well, thank you, Megan, and to the Centralina team for the invitation to speak to y'all today and to share some of our work. Let's go. There we go. If you're not familiar with the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, or SACE, we are a regional nonprofit organization. We advocate for the responsible and equitable production and consumption of energy. We're a small but mighty team of about 25, and like Megan already mentioned, the number one source of greenhouse gas emissions in our region and in the United States is transportation. So our Electrify the South umbrella encompasses all of our transportation electrification work. Our ET team is 3 full members, and then one kind of splits her time between our team and our utility team. And we really are working to accelerate an equitable transition to transportation electrification throughout the Southeast. So on the next slide, you'll see some of the workflows that I wanted to highlight and help, in the spirit of today, like thinking through potential collaboration opportunities in the future. So one of the things that we do are state and federal planning work. An example of that in Florida, the state legislature passed a statute that the Department of Transportation had to come up with a statewide EV plan. So we engaged in that process and gave input to the plan. My colleague Stan Cross, that some of you may know, has engaged over the years in a lot of the work that previous Governor Roy Cooper put together on transportation electrification. We also helped with the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure, or NEVI, state plans. So that's kind of our work there. We're a membership organization, so we have standing and we intervene in investor-owned utility rate cases and dockets, and we advocate for increased education and electric transportation programs. So an example of that is the electric school bus pilot that Duke has in North Carolina with their electric school bus pilot. Another thing that I wanted to highlight are some of our programs. So we have the Electrify the South Collaborative that I'll talk more in detail about in just a minute. We also have our Energy for All Y'all program, which is a storytelling program to help increase visibility and awareness of inspiring stories. So if you have a great story, maybe like a brewery in your town put solar panels on and you'd like to be able to highlight that, we have staff who are dedicated to telling those stories. So happy to talk to you offline about that. We also have our Clean School Bus program, where we're accelerating electric school bus adoption throughout the region. We have our Carolina Car Share program that I'm sure Megan has told you all about, but I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then we also have our Ride and Drive educational events, where we can bring an EV up if your local government is interested or EV curious, but you've got some folks that are not on board yet. It's a great way to be able to have that firsthand experience with them driving the car, and a lot of aha moments are had with those. So I just wanted to kind of make everybody aware of those. And then I'm also going to talk about a resource that we have been working on for several years called our toolkit, and then highlight our EVs in the Southeast report. So let me talk a little bit more about our collaborative. So it was started as a result of the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. There was so much federal funding that was available, and local governments were like drinking from the fire hose, trying to understand all of the opportunities that were there and how to apply for the funding and secure funding. So we collaborated with the Southeast Sustainability Directors Network to create the collaborative, and it really is creating a community for Southeastern local governments to help them identify resources and tools and be able to talk together about what's working, what's not working, and advance the work of electric transportation. And obviously, the federal funding may not exist at this point for some of the programs, but the need is definitely still there. The total cost of ownership is very much in favor of electric transportation for fleets. So making sure that that work is continuing and it is through the collaborative is really important. So next slide, we have, I just wanted to mention like the frequency of when we meet and how we meet. So all local governments are welcome to participate and join. It's free to join. We have quarterly virtual meetings. Our next call is going to be on September 18th from 10 to 11:30, and I can put the link to that in the chat. The topics that we select come from participants. So that peer-to-peer learning and also understanding what local governments need and providing those resources is really at the heart of what we're trying to accomplish with the collaborative. So we're going to, on the next call, have a conversation, a facilitated conversation about charging fee structure, because a lot of local governments don't know what to charge or what's, so we're going to hear from each other about like how we're structuring those. And then also a conversation on guidelines for EV charging infrastructure assessment, figuring out all the different ways to approach assessing, charging infrastructure for your communities. We also have in-person state-specific convening. So we had in previous years invited the whole region to participate in in-person convening. And what we found is that there are a lot of needs that are kind of state-specific. So we're looking to do a North Carolina convening likely in March of 26. So if you'd like to participate in that, we'd love to have you come and join. We have travel stipends for that. It was generally generously funded through the Mosaic Momentum Foundation. So really just can't emphasize enough how important it is to hear from colleagues in that peer-to-peer learning, and that's really the spirit of the collaborative. All right, and then some previous topics that we have discussed in the collaborative are on the next slide, community engagement. So a lot of the federal funding required community engagement, and a lot of local governments had not done that specifically with transportation electrification. So we had a whole section on that. We had an entire call to talk through direct pay or elected pay. That was a new way to capture funding, where local government that had gone before and had all of their forms were able to provide annotated forms and really explain to their peers how the process worked. We've also had topics on federal tools like the EVI ProLight, which helps assess EV charging needs. The EVI Locate tool, which is a great design tool to help users create electric vehicle charging station deployment plans, where you're using GIS data from your own town to help create cost estimates. So that's another topic. And then we also have had really insightful presentations from local governments, like Raleigh presented on their GIS mapping tool, which overlays criteria for where you would want to have community charging, and it's an open source resource. So if you want to use your local maps and plug right into that, it's a really helpful tool. Another great presentation was from Boynton Beach on their Energy Edge program, where they talked through how they created an ordinance to capture impact fees that directly fund resilient measures, and one of them is EV charging infrastructure. So ways to, continue funding the work that you want to see, even with some of the federal funds non-existent. And then we've taken a lot of the presentations and put them into a resource guide with links. So trying to make sure that if you miss a meeting, you can still catch up on all of the great resources that are there. Another one is our utility program guide. So it's tabs state by state, so you can see exactly what programs are being offered in your state. You can also see what other states are doing and say, like, hey, that's a great program. We should be trying to emulate that here. So at any rate, that's the ETS collaborative. Really, like I said before, it's a great way for peers to help each other explain what they're doing, what's working, and then some pitfalls to avoid. So the next resource that I wanted to highlight and talk about is our electric transportation toolkit for local governments to help accelerate electric vehicles in our communities. And it basically is a highly procured compilation of real world examples from local governments in the Southeast. So it's policies, it's actions that are equitable and cost effective. And it's meant to be kind of a taken off the shelf example of those actions and policies that have already been implemented by other Southeast governments. It's got links to ordinances and resolutions and programs. So you're not wasting time trying to reinvent the wheel. You can go right to an ordinance that another local government's passed and go from there. And the next slide shows kind of how the document is arranged. It's basically a compilation of fact sheets. So if you're really interested in, say, permitting and inspection, you can click right on that, and it gives the rationale of why permitting is important to have it kind of streamlined, and then it has examples right there. And you can see, like I mentioned, all the topics. And then on the next slide, you can see a little bit more of an example of how it's arranged. So we've got a big idea, and then we've got, like I said, the rationale. And then we have supporting objectives. And then under the objectives, there are actionable items. And then we list some best practices, and there are then links to either resources or examples to support each one of those. So that's the toolkit. We update it annually. It's just been updated. So I'm going to, on the next slide, share some of the updates that I wanted to kind of highlight from this year. One is Atlanta's EV Ready ordinance. So to my knowledge, it's the first in the country that pairs EV Ready infrastructure requirements and site level fire safety requirements into a single unified development policy. So we've included that. We have a new section on safety, which Megan and Ian helped contribute to with one of the collaborative meetings where we talked about that. We also have a section on, like I mentioned, the EVI locate tool. That tool is in the toolkit. I mentioned the Energy Edge program that Boynton Beach has. We included the Carolina Car Share program, which is a membership-based car sharing service that's providing 24/7 access to all electric vehicles in Charlotte for residents and communities there. And then we also included the Charging Smart program, which offers free technical assistance to local governments that want to adopt some of these policies and practices. And then there's a section on charging in the right-of-way, putting cords in the right-of-way. There's new ordinances that local governments have passed around that. So if anyone would like a deeper dive or like a personal tour of the toolkit, I'm also happy to do that. So feel free to reach out. Or if you want to, hear any specific things that are there. And then finally, I'd like to just highlight our transportation electrification in the Southeast report. So it's published every year in conjunction with Atlas Public Policy. We are currently updating the sixth iteration of it. And so it provides this very like longitudinal look at market data and where we've been in the past 6 years in the Southeast. This year's report, we usually publish it in the fall, so it'll go through Q2 of 2025 data. And then we also publish a update at the end of the year that will have Q4 data all the way through 2025. And in addition to the large report, we create one-pagers like fact sheets. So we have a Southeast fact sheet, and then we do state-by-state fact sheets. So there's a North Carolina specific fact sheet. And the indicators that we capture are, we look at manufacturing data, both the employment numbers and the investment. We capture sales data and also charging infrastructure deployment. And then we also look at how much money has been invested by the investor-owned utilities and how much money has gone into public funding for electric transportation. So that's the report. The next slide just shows a QR code to get to the report. And then I'll wrap it up with my contact information. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions about any of the things that I've discussed, or you want to just talk shop on electric transportation. Happy to do that. Thanks.
Thank you, Dory, for that detailed overview of a lot of cool opportunities for folks to get involved going on around our state and the Southeast region. So next, I will turn it over to Don Moreland to launch us into kind of thinking more about this building efficiency side of energy.
All right. Thank you so much, Megan. And that was terrific, Dory. Thank you for sharing all of those resources. The name of our company is called Bright Spaces, and I'm going to talk about solar crowdsource and solarized programs today. But just kind of real quick, Bright Space is the name of the company, and we take a market-based approach to providing community solutions to help with the transition to clean energy. So we like to say we are turning policy into action because we've developed a couple of different platforms that can be used to develop programs that help your community reach that next level in the transition to clean energy. So we'll go to the next slide there. And we do that through solarized campaigns and electrify programs. And I'm going to talk more about these in just a minute, but we have two different platforms. So we've got Bright Spaces kind of sitting at the top, and then it branches off into two different platforms. Solar Crowdsource is our platform that handles solarized campaigns, and then Let's Go Electric is a brand new platform that we have that helps facilitate electrify programs. These are mostly available for residential, but also fit commercial and nonprofit organization applications as well. Okay, next slide. Let's first talk about solarized campaigns. You guys have, I'm sure, heard of solarized programs. If you're in the clean energy space, they are not new. There's been over 300 such programs across the country over the last decade or so. Started with the Department of Energy. They were providing grants. The first one was actually in Portland, Oregon. And it was such a success that they were able to spread it out and provide grants to other communities across the country. And again, we have kind of taken that solarized model and created a market-based solution. What we have found is that a lot of communities would love to do a community-based clean energy group purchasing campaign to make clean energy more affordable and more accessible, but it's hard to find the resources to do it, and and also some of the subject matter expertise required to do it. So we have tried to create a no-cost solution for communities wishing to go that route. Okay, next slide. So in a nutshell, you can kind of click through that. I forgot that some of this was animated, Megan. They're community-based clean energy group purchasing campaigns that are designed to make solar energy and battery storage more accessible and more affordable than it otherwise would be outside the program. And like I mentioned before, these are open to residential, commercial, and nonprofit organizations. So a lot of communities that do have clean renewable energy goals, they're not just for the municipality or for the county, they're for everyone to try to get there by a certain date. And so these programs are designed to help retrofit some of the existing built environment to add solar and battery storage. And also we're doing a lot of EV charging stations through these programs as well. All right, next slide. So I mentioned these programs are available to help make solar and battery storage more affordable and accessible. So let's talk about the affordable part. We're able to develop a program where we do a lot of education and outreach, and we originate consumers who are interested throughout the community. And so these programs are usually about 4 or 5 months long, where we're constantly putting out programming, webinars, workshops. We'll do open house events. We also like to kind of show up at farmers markets or festivals, wherever people might be, to help socialize the campaign. And by doing that, we're able to reduce the customer acquisition costs that the contractor might otherwise have to pay for themselves. And then we're able to get as many people to sign up to go solar in a limited period of time. And then we're able to get volume discounts on materials and installations, and then working within a limited geographic area. So for example, I'm going to talk about our current program going on, the Solar Charlotte Mecklenburg campaign. So we're able to just work within that general area and create efficiencies by streamlining and grouping together site visits and installation. So that's all of these are ways that we can help save on the cost, the soft cost, and the actual cost of solar, and then pass those savings along to the participants of the campaign through discounts that they would not otherwise be able to achieve. So with our Solarize programs, we're able to generally save folks around 20% of a really high quality system that they would otherwise get outside of the program. All right, next slide. And then accessible. If you've ever thought about going solar, it can be daunting. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of information to figure out what's a good panel, what's a good contractor, what's a good price, what's a good warranty. All of these things kind of go into it. And you also have, keep in mind that it is a significant investment because these panels and most of the equipment are warranted for up to 25 years. So it's not a decision to make lightly, and you want to make sure you're doing your due diligence. And these Solarize programs are designed to do that due diligence for you. So we put out a request for proposal. We get competitive bids from the contractors, and then we're able to select a contractor. The materials, will know the warranties and all of the pricing ahead of time. In addition, we're able to provide free, and I should underscore, trusted site evaluations. We make sure in our RFPs that we get a sample proposal from any of the bidding contractors, and we try to make sure that they have, I don't want to get into too much detail, but they're not overestimating the energy production or underestimating what we call the D-rate factor, like the soiling on panels over a period of time, or the annual utility escalation rate. These are all things that sometimes contractors or sales folks will try to exaggerate some of those numbers, which can make a proposal look a lot better than it otherwise would. And that's what a lot of these programs have kind of become a trusted way to go solar, because there is a lot out there that folks need to learn, and there's a lot of let's just say there has been some bad actors out there in the solar industry, as much as I hate to admit it, and that's what we're trying to fight against. Okay, next slide. So our objectives are pretty simple. We just want to lower the cost of solar and battery storage, provide a bunch of education and outreach events. And the whole goal is to give folks the information that they need to make a good, educated, business decision for themselves. Usually we're able to substantially increase the number of installations in a community. And, long after the Solarize program has come and gone, we see kind of a proliferation of solar. And the momentum just kind of keeps going. We have found out that solar is quite addictive. When you see your neighbor have solar and you kind of ask them about it, and they start talking about their energy savings and how, maybe they have an electric vehicle and now they're plugging their car in while the sun is shining, and now their car is being powered by the sun. It's really kind of exciting, and it can be contagious. But we would not be doing our job if we just kind of stopped there. While we've got a coalition of organizations and communities together, the more we can do to leverage the resources there to create additional opportunities for low and moderate income residents to help address energy burdens. And we've even done workforce development programs. Then we like to take advantage of that. So it all depends on, when we first meet with a community, we'll talk about their goals and, try to structure a Solarized program the best we can to meet those goals. Okay, next slide. We like to think that it's a win-win-win situation. So with participants, they're going to get, a lot of efficiencies, vetted contractors, free evaluations, a trusted environment, and group discount pricing. I talked a little bit about the installer, about, how we can help reduce the customer acquisition cost. And another thing that the contractor, if they're selected as a result of the RFP, they have established really deep, meaningful community relationship, and that'll continue to last for years. The community benefits are profound. We did a Solarize the Triangle program, for example, and we were able to generate almost $11 million of new clean energy economic development. I think at least a dozen jobs were created as a result of that, and help the communities that were participating reach their clean energy goals. And then we're also able to do, just kind of small things. If you ever thought about Soul Smart, the DOE program, or other regional programs that might have green certifications, then these programs can go a long way towards, adding up points to count towards those, if that could apply to you. Okay, next slide. Here's just an example of some programs we have run in North Carolina. Our first one was in 2020 and 2021, right in the heart of COVID. We managed in Asheville, Buncombe, to get 180 folks to go solar, and that ended up in over $250,000 in annual bill savings. And I won't run through all these numbers, but you can kind of see how it all relates. The Triangle program is in the middle. We did over 300 installations there, and I mentioned almost $11 million in new clean energy economic development, and the bill savings there was almost twice as much, $570,000 annually. And the reason why that's important is because these are real savings, and folks can use that money for more household related needs like school supplies, or buying shoes, or going out to eat, things like that. And what that tends to do is have a multiplier effect. So now folks are saving money, spending that money in the community, and everybody is able to benefit from that. And then we also have just finished up a Solarized Triad program not too long ago, able to manage 75 installations there. And that was our first workforce development program at Solarize the Triad, which was just really terrific. Something we've been working to do. We've done a lot of low and moderate income programming within the Solarize programs, but the workforce development program with our partners in the Triad area. It was quite special. Okay, next slide. Just really proud to be working with Centralina and the participating communities on the Solarize Charlotte Mecklenburg campaign. And if you go to the next slide, you can see it is the city of Charlotte, Mecklenburg County, town of Davidson, or have all really joined together to help make sure that their residents understand this program. And it's been one of my professional pleasures to have the opportunity to work with Centralina to administer the program. It's been a great experience so far. Solarize Charlotte Mecklenburg is currently ongoing, and we are signing people up till the end of October. And then, of course, they'll get their free proposal, and then they have until the end of the year, or homeowners have until the end of the year to sign a contract. And then we give it even a little bit extra time for commercial entities and nonprofit organizations to sign a contract by the end of March 2026 for that. So go ahead and go to solarizecharmec.com and sign up. I just want to leave you with and I know this is a terrible pun, but that we try to make it as plug and play as possible. Vetted the contractors, vetted materials. We know what the pricing is, and we're able to offer folks community support, and that's really important. So folks are not going it alone. If something should happen to go sideways, there's us, there's Centralina, in the case of Charlotte Mecklenburg, and we're there to help right the ship and make sure that all the projects come in for a smooth landing. Okay, so that's Solarize. Let's talk about electrified programs just real quick. This is under our other platform called Let's Go Electric, and it's a bit different. It's the same kind of community-based programming. Our first program is in Asheville and Buncombe County. We're fortunate enough there to work with those communities to do the first ever electrified program in the state of North Carolina. And what this is, it has a lot of these, if you can go to the next slide, has a lot of the same education and outreach components that comes with a Solarize campaign, but it's a bit different. So we do vet the contractors, and we make sure that the different systems and technologies that they're offering are, that they comply with, say, Duke Trade Ally type, rebate program, and the Energy Saver NC program, and so folks can take advantage of those types of incentives. But if you go to the next slide, it's a little different in that we have developed a marketplace. So rather than doing an RFP and selecting just one or two contractors for a Solarize program, electrified programs are way more inclusive. We build out a contractor network, and we have a marketplace where contractors can list their products and services that they offer and connect with consumers within the community and directly through that marketplace platform. So it's if you look at the icons on the bottom, those are all the types of products and services you need for electrification. And the difference also between electrification and solar is that solar is more binary, right? You either have solar or you don't have solar. But with electrification, there's so many different things that go into electrifying your home, including energy efficiency and weatherization, sealing, and insulation. So people start their electrification journey in different parts, and so it's important to be able to offer all the different electrification products and services all the time with all the different contractors. Listen, if there's just one contractor that offered all of the electrification products and services that were needed, maybe we would do it the other way, but that's just not the way it works with electrification. All right, next slide. So this is just to talk about the marketplace a little bit more, developing that local contractor network, and making sure that they are approved with the utility or with the state program that is offering any incentives and rebates. Do a lot of events and education opportunities, not just with consumers, but also with the contractors. So, it's important that contractors understand what these opportunities are too. We're seeing a lot of heat pump uptake, for example, air source heat pumps, more than in years past, but it has been a bit of a learning curve sometimes for contractors to understand what the demand for those systems are and what the benefits are as well. So we do what we can to help provide 360-degree educational opportunities all the way around. Okay, next slide. One of the things we're probably most proud of is providing a navigating service. So again, electrifying is complicated and a lot of folks don't know where to start. So we have developed a place where folks can get a free consultation. And this is with our in-house energy experts where we'll make an appointment and then they kind of tell us what their goals are, what it is they're looking for. And then we're able to work with our partners at Rocky Mountain Institute. I guess it's RMI now. They have developed a clean, it's called a green upgrade calculator. We have integrated that calculator through an API into our platform. So at the end of a navigator session, we're able to help folks see what the big picture is. If you're replacing a traditional air conditioner with an air source heat pump, for example, that air source heat pump very well might be more expensive than a traditional replacement. So it's our job to demonstrate, well, what happens if you, add the utility rebate, the state rebate, the energy savings over a 15-year period of time, and any tax credits that might be available. Here's your real apples to apples comparison. And that usually helps people make those good educated decisions. So the Navigator program has been a huge plus for us. And then the third component on the next slide is our Home Energy Resilience Cooperative. This is essentially our group purchase, which is in our DNA from the Solarize programs. We have just kind of translated that over to Electrified programs. And now it's our HERC instead of Solarize. It's a HERC program, Home Energy Resilience Cooperative. And so 4 times, once each quarter is our goal, we'll roll out a group purchase opportunity for various equipment or services or appliances that are part and parcel to an electrification program. Okay, next slide. And that's it for me. I'm just so happy to have the opportunity to speak with you guys. And you can, I'll put my email in the chat box. So you guys feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And I know Don has to jump a little early, so we might not be able to get all of our questions to him at the end. But if you have any questions for him now, please drop them in the chat. And Don, if you can stay on a little bit and maybe answer some of those. And if not, we will pass that information along to Don and get the answers out to the group in our follow-up email to you all as well.
Emily is here too. She's available to answer questions.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you all again. And on that note, I will turn it over to Ian Bailey to kind of add the resiliency aspect to this larger conversation as well. So Ian, all yours.
Good morning. As it says here, I'm Ian Bailey. I'm a regional planner if you go back a slide, at Land Sky Regional Council. I work primarily in energy and clean transportation. So in the wake of Hurricane Helene, we partnered with a group called Footprint Project out of New Orleans, Louisiana, that is a disaster response org that specializes in bringing solar generators and PV panels into disaster areas. Next slide. Their goal is to offset generator usage and the need for gasoline in disaster areas. And we partnered with them because one of our primary things at Land Sky, a sub-project that is neither clean transportation or energy that I'm also engaged in tangentially, is a digital inclusion, digital opportunities work where we're helping provide high-speed internet devices and training to folks. So we utilized the partnership with Footprint Project to reconnect people by us deploying energy assets with communications assets into the region. Next slide. And you can click through this. I gave Megan a veritable trap minefield of animated slides here, unbeknownst to me until after I emailed them this morning. So Footprint Project, what they do is they leverage an extensive list of industry partners in clean energy and logistics to deploy PV arrays and battery storage systems in disaster areas. While they're deploying larger assets to community hubs, they also deploy what they call battery libraries of small handheld assets and small units out into the public to be dispersed for people to be able to charge devices, use lighting, run medical devices off of. They're also able to reduce clean energy waste streams because they take in donations of frequently used panels or lower capacity battery systems to build out these backups for. They get a lot of second use assets, good quality ones that the communities want after a footprint response. They're able to keep. So a lot of times solar panels will come in that are still at 90 or 95% of their rated efficiency. If a community center wants to keep those panels after footprint, takes the rest of the response equipment back and things are returning to normal, then they get the opportunity to keep those assets. They also, as these things come in, PV panels and batteries and other equipment that are not as functional, because you get donations, you get some good ones, you get some bad ones. All those get shipped back to recycling partners by Footprint to be recycled. So they send the PV panels out to a PV panel recyclery in the southeast. Batteries have been going out west to Redwood Materials, although they're building a new facility now in South Carolina that should help with shortening the amount that we need to travel. So the big kind of takeaway about Footprint's things is they reduce the carbon footprint of disaster response, which is kind of one of the worst aspects of the response. They call it the disaster rodeo and disaster response orgs. Is that there's so much waste and there's so many generated localized emissions, so many materials that get brought in and just left abandoned. Their goal is to turn off generators and to help people understand that clean energy is a resilient form. Batteries and solar panels, if the sun is shining, you've got power. And what we've experienced after Helene was loss of thousands and thousands of telephone poles and miles and miles and miles of power. We had no energy in some communities until fall, winter. In some cases, there's still a couple areas that have pretty poor power quality where they've been able to patch power back in, but they still have a lot of outages or brownouts where there's reduced capacity. We'll go to the next slide, and you can click through this one as well. So what we did on our end at Land to Sky is worked to connect with our partners to pull in Starlink satellite systems. We also got refurbished laptop computers and tablets and deployed those out to community centers so people would be able to do work, to be able to connect with family, and to be able to connect with resources like filling out FEMA forms online, respond to emails. A lot of the kind of background of that work had already been laid as part of a bigger process we're going through to just ensure that people have access to affordable high-speed internet, that they have access to the devices they need to live the digital life that we're all in currently, and that they understand how to use those devices. And to us, it's reconnecting these communities after a disaster isn't really a project, it's an ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of all of those components of high access to high-speed internet, access to devices, access to technical assistance and training, so people can get full use out of these things. Next slide, please. When we have a disaster like Hurricane Helene, requests come from all over the place. We really relied primarily on direct requests for assistance. Footprint does exclusively do that, where they take requests from people in the communities or people that are connected with the communities for energy assets. We also, being a cog, have a lot of connections in these communities. So we were able to kind of combine that with the direct response and can help connect community groups to Footprint's assets and to our communications assets. Next slide. So another aspect of what happens, Footprint comes into the community and immediately connect with local business owners that have experience with solar, battery storage, off-grid work. And that helps us to deploy things rapidly and also to have technicians on hand. Some of those partnerships that we had were the Modern Off-Grid store in Mars Hill, Sundance Power Systems. Next slide. Sugar Hollow Solar, Schneider Electric. We had a lot of other local groups that came in and helped, and individuals that had experience in solar and battery storage that came and volunteered as well. Together, those partnerships really help develop a local response that's led by local industry. We also utilized a network of community-based organizations to establish community needs and to be able to develop hubs for the battery libraries to be distributed from. As you know, community-based orgs often know the communities better than anybody else does, especially out-of-town response organizations. And they already have the trust and respect of their populations. So that speeds up the process of bringing in technology and helping people reconnect again. Some of the organizations that we had worked with included Poder Emma, that works with this Hispanic population in and around Asheville. Next slide. We worked with the Rollins community in Marshall. Next slide. We worked with Camp Miller in Pensacola, that was a instrumental in the highly devastated Pensacola community in bringing in resources, providing places for people to stay, providing warm meals 3 times a day. Next slide. Also in the very isolated Poplar community in Western North Carolina, we helped the Poplar Community Center set up a number of systems to power their operations, running refrigeration and freezers and lights on the site for the people in that small isolated community to be able to connect and get resources. Next slide. And a little closer to our home and our territory, we were also deployed a number of assets into Barnesville. And these are just a few examples of some of the places that we sent things to. We took requests from across the region in the first 75 days. Next slide. And you can click through this stuff. We took 97 requests for assistance. We supported 49 sites. We deployed over 100 kilowatts of solar. We installed over 250 kilowatt hours of battery storage. We helped community hubs to serve over 2,000 community members daily in Western North Carolina. And we deployed over $1 million worth of energy assets. And as this happens, the stories come back to us from these communities. Next slide. Through a lot of different channels. These stories tell us of folks that survived the disaster, that found themselves grateful for the ability to use medical devices without the noise and exhaust from fossil fuel generators. Next slide. They tell a story of folks whose quality of life and feeling of safety has been improved by this technology. Next slide. And they tell us a story about how people find comfort in the little things sometimes. And as the saying goes, it takes a village. In the case of disaster response, it takes a whole village of partners to supply the equipment, the funding, the expertise, and the logistics. So what's next after the storm, after the immediate response? Next slide. Well, phase 2 is recovery. This would include, next slide, long-term power assistance. So we work with community partners to assist long-term shelter and power needs. For instance, Haven on the Hill in Waynesville is one site that has people living in campers and tiny homes. They've been in there since the storm. Many of those folks are still unhoused and having to live in the site. There were over 50 units on that property when we deployed about 15 different solar arrays and battery storage systems onto it. That was one of over 50 sites where we've been able to support people that are living in temporary housing like campers and tiny homes, and greatly reducing their reliance on gas and gas generators. Next slide. That also includes a free store. So Footprint Project, by working with a lot of solar industry partners, is able to get donations of lots of equipment. Frequently it is stuff that is near its end of life. It's being phased out for newer systems. Sometimes it's old technology. They get these donations from all over the world that come in, and the Solar Free Store is a location that allows us to collect these and give out individual components to people. If maybe somebody's inverter was damaged during the storm, or they had some panels broken, or people that are trying to repair systems and you can't get those parts anymore. Well, sometimes we may have a pallet full of those things. We're also utilizing a lot of those for new systems that people are building in long-term temporary housing. So folks that are moving into buses and campers that don't see that they'll be able to rebuild soon, we're able to supply the components of the system for them to be able to build a solar and battery storage system out of that. Next slide. Development of community resilience hubs. This is a big one, and this is something that I've been very passionate about for a few years. We've been working a lot at Land to Sky to put forth proposals to help educate people about community resilience hubs and using resilient clean energy. And I guess a silver lining of the worst storm we've ever seen in the western part of the state is that through a collaboration with Footprint Project and the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association, we've secured $5 million in Department of Energy money from the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality to run a pilot program. So the types of assets that Footprint brought in and that we helped deploy after the storm, we will be permanently deploying across Western North Carolina, a handful of the most heavily affected communities. And we'll be building out 2 pilot clean energy resilience hubs that are mobile, one in the western part of the state and one on the coast as part of this process in the next 3 years. This is going to be this is a big deal. I mean, this is an opportunity for us to showcase that. We're collecting information from entities in the western part of the state currently that want to apply to have their site evaluated and potentially get one of these systems installed. And for us, this $5 million isn't the end of the project and the full scope. This is the seed money that starts us proving out how well this technology works. And we'll be bringing more money in. We're working with a lot of funding partners and following a lot of leads to see how we can expand this out and make an even bigger impact with a whole lot more than $5 million. Next slide. And the last part of this kind of phase 2 approach is workshops and training. We'll be doing workshops and training primarily footprint project. We'll be leading these, teaching people about solar microgrids. We're working with partners that do energy efficiency, some of which may be on this call, and communications to help prepare residents for the next disaster. We're working through this pilot project as we build these sites out. We'll be teaching people in the communities about the energy storage, about the PV panels, about how this system works, so we can kind of develop an ecosystem of people that are ready and able to respond more safely in the next disaster. Let me catch a drink of water. Don't worry, I'm almost done. But the storm, when Hurricane Helene hit Western North Carolina, it really only lasted a few hours. Of course, we'd had a large rainstorm a couple days prior. We were already seeing some flooding, but the impacts of that couple hours of Helene are permanent. They've left scars that'll remain for decades to come. We've experienced a disaster that's been described as of biblical proportions and a geologic event. The geography of our region has changed forever. Riverbeds and mountainsides were scoured to bedrock. Entire communities were wiped away, taken away by flooding and landslides. And mountains upon mountains of debris are still being removed from the region. But what remains is an inextinguishable spirit, the spirit of the Appalachian people, the spirit of folk that take hard times in stride, that stop to help their neighbors, that put others before themselves and thrive on community. We're grateful to have been able to bring these technologies to our communities, to connect them to their loved ones, to educate them about energy and resilience, and to leave a lasting impression that clean energy isn't an enemy. It's available and it's viable and it works. And thanks to North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association and the DEQ, we're bringing more of this technology to Western North Carolina to help us for the next disaster. Thank you. I hope I didn't go too fast. I didn't stumble too many times. I'll change this whole thing this morning.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you for the very powerful words, especially there at the end. I think that is something that resonates with all of us in our lived experiences and working experiences. So I think that was a great way to kind of tie this all together of how sustainability and resilience just really is a great next step if you're not already involved. And on that note, I would like to open the floor for folks. Anybody that has questions for any of our panelists, feel free to raise your hand or come off mute, drop any questions that you have in the chat, just kind of whatever you're comfortable with. But yeah, for now, we'll have about 15 minutes for Q&A, and I can launch us while everyone's kind of thinking a bit about what their questions are. So for each of you, what is kind of that timeline when working in like a governmental space to kind of get each of your projects up and going? So Dory, maybe for you would be, when you're thinking about electrifying your fleet, what are some of those key first steps, and maybe a timeline to kind of getting that launched? And Emily, I see you're still on the call. Thank you for tag teaming with Dawn today. What is, getting a solarized campaign up and going? And then Ian, when you're thinking more of that resiliency side, and as you actually are planning out these next steps, kind of what for each of you is kind of that estimated timeline just to get this stuff up and going? And I know funding is a key, partners are a key. So just kind of a large, I know it's a hard question to be able to pinpoint like the exact with so many variables, but kind of what are those key next steps or, high level timeline that people can expect from like the very beginning of each process?
I'll kick off. So I think with transportation electrification, if you're looking at your fleet, now is the time to start. Yesterday was the time to start. One way that lots of local governments are kind of leaning into it is just with a pilot. So, purchasing 1 or 2 vehicles for those really high use cases where they're getting a lot of miles annually, but also just being cognizant that the charging infrastructure really should come first before you purchase the vehicles. And that, depending on how much charging you want to do, can be several months in the making. So, trying to assess where you have the power capacity already in facilities, and then kind of working a timeline based on that. So, I mean, obviously, it's not, with a traditional fleet, it's like the fleet director buys a new car and then that's it. But with transportation electrification, you've really got to work in tandem with your team at your local government. So it's, looking at the IT team, making sure that the folks that are handling procurement are involved, the folks that are obviously in the fleet department, but then also like building services and, where the planners are that know where the infrastructure can be placed. All of those conversations need to happen like first so that you have an end product that everyone's happy with. So that's not an exact time, but definitely the tax credits for the charging infrastructure phase out June of next year. So there's still time to take the federal tax credits up to 30% of the charging infrastructure. The vehicle credits are phasing out September of next month. So just some other things to think about.
I can share a few things about solarize and electrification campaigns from Bright Spaces. Well, just a first note about tax credits, since Dory shared that info as well. Residential clean energy tax credits for solar and battery storage end at the end of 2025. So there's definitely a time crunch with regards to residential solar. That, however, commercial solar will continue into 2026, but has significant changes. And then as far as electrification goes, the energy efficiency or clean energy federal tax credits are on their way out as well, but there are utility level incentives and so forth, depending on where you are. When you're looking at solarized campaigns, the pre-planning stage is really centered on building stakeholder engagement, identifying partners, and then getting clear on the campaign objectives. It's hard to give a timeline because it depends on the campaign objectives. Some solarized campaigns are require more planning, perhaps 6 months or a year of planning in advance, particularly if there are more requirements or restrictions related to government involvement or federal funding. And then other solarized campaigns can be up and running in a matter of weeks, particularly those that have more of a grassroots lean. With electrification campaigns, one of the main focuses on getting things up and off the ground is identifying contractors, because there's so many different elements to electrification. Really just building a contractor network takes a lot of time, and so that's one of the first things, identifying partners that can help establish a community of contractors.
I'm going to take a whole different angle. But what those two said, I just want to point at y'all, is fantastic advice. I'm going to come at it from the resilience and planning side. I think the first most important step people can make when they're thinking about resiliency against disasters, against any other sort of failure of grid systems or energy systems, is understanding how much energy you use. And I've got a pretty good example of how that works. So one of our communities, Hot Springs, here in Western North Carolina, has a microgrid that Duke installed as a redundant power resource to a community that's long had problems with power quality. They were able to have that microgrid up and functioning within a day or so of the storm coming through and essentially wiping out the entirety of downtown Hot Springs. And they found that the battery storage was sufficient to get well into or even through the night if people didn't run their air conditioning. And so there was a campaign of citizens going around knocking on other people's doors saying, turn your air conditioning off because you're using up all of our power. And it just really brought home for me the fundamental nature of none of us really understand how much energy we consume with every single thing we do. And when you're trying to prepare yourself, it might not be about getting more solar panels and getting more batteries. It might be about being more efficient in the way you do things, about figuring out what critical loads you've got, what things absolutely have to run for you to be able to survive, as opposed to things that you would like to have run to affect your quality of life after a disaster. And I think that plays over heavily in electrification, but also into fleet planning and looking at your fuel source for your fleet vehicles. If you are only running gasoline or you're only running diesel, you're in a position where if you don't have a supplier, we had 2 gas stations in the Asheville area that were able to come online within a couple days of the storm. And there were people stranded on the sides of the roads everywhere that ran out of gas trying to drive between those two. We had fleets that we've worked with in our clean vehicles program that were running on propane hybrid vehicles that run gasoline and propane that didn't have to worry about making it to one of those gas stations because they're running 2 tanks on their vehicle and they've got propane pumping station on site. So they may have 1,000 gallons of propane available. And that's enough to run most of those operations for a few weeks or a month of heavy use. So thinking about your fuel stocks, I think is an important part of pre-planning for that before you even get over into the let's build things to be resilient. Think about the plan for building that thing and how you can get the best impact with the least investment. Because those of y'all that work in government know that we always want to buy the cheapest thing we can, and we're going to take the longest time to make the decision about it. So make it count.
Thank you all for I'm being in this space. I know it takes a lot of moving parts to get where we're going. So it's always helpful to kind of have that advice of like even where to start, because sometimes it can seem like a mountain to climb when you're just looking at it from afar, when folks already have, some of their programs or the infrastructure up and going. So I know it sounds like we got a quiet group today, but any questions from folks on the call about what you've heard today, or you know, thoughts for next steps on your end that you'd like to share? Just I'm just opening the floor for whatever you all have on your minds right now. Like I said, quiet group. So I guess the last, I'll throw one more out and then we'll wrap this up. But any just like key advice you have from your own lessons learned working in this space?
I'm waiting for Dory to jump first, but she's not.
Oh, I thought you were waiting to hear from audience members, like their key takeaways, their key thoughts.
I mean,
Apologies.
it can be open floor for all. If anybody in the audience is also curious or would also like to share, but I might put it on you two to kick us off.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kick off then. I think that it's just really important to remember that there are ways to make this happen, and in the long run, it will be beneficial, economically for local governments if they're, saving money with these clean energy solutions, like, transitioning their fleet. And there are lots of local governments that are well on their way to making it happen. So reaching out to others that have gone before, I think, is really powerful first, good first step. I think that fleet directors that have had success with transitioning can definitely help others that, avoid pitfalls. So reaching out to your peers and hearing from them, I think, is a great way to get started.
I'm going to say that one of the more important lessons, I guess, that came from this footprint response in the region is that most of the residents of our region don't really understand clean energy at all. And we, as employees of the local government that work and interact with these folks a lot, are constantly under pressure from different political sides to encourage or discourage one thing or another. And much like one of my soapbox things is we never should have let transportation get politicized. I think the same about energy. What I learned is once we put the products in people's hands, I've got loaner solar battery generators and solar panels that I never went back and picked up because I saw people's minds get changed. And they were like, this is the best thing ever. I had one guy tell me, I've got to run an oxygen concentrator all night. And I got to hear that generator running. And then I got to go out there and put fuel in it if it shuts off. And it's outside my bedroom window. And I can smell the exhaust coming in. And he's like, this is a lifesaver for me. And I said, well, maybe I won't come back and get this one. Maybe we'll just leave it out here in the middle of nowhere, Yancey County. And there's a lot of those still out there floating around. People understand things that are relevant to them, but people have also been politicized to feel like they have to one way or the other on a lot of these topics. And I think our job in local government is to kind of play that middleman. I mean, we've been doing it with transportation a long time at Land to Sky, where we help people understand the benefits, and frequently those are financial benefits. We get fleets on board because they're gonna save money. And that helps. Then those fleets that are on board and have 4 different types of fuel in their fleet weren't shut down when you couldn't get to a gas station anymore. We had EV chargers that were functioning within 24 hours of the storm because the DC fast chargers are on higher voltage feeds than your house is. So as the infrastructure started to come back up, the places that had less damage, like south of Asheville, EV chargers were back online, and EV drivers were able to drive to Biltmore Park and charge their vehicles. So I think educating and encouraging people to really understand a thing as opposed to what you've always been told, what the voice on your Facebook feed is telling you, is the biggest part of that we can play. Preparing people to understand how much better things can be if you're willing to give alternative fuels, clean energy a chance.
Well said. Well said. As I'm transitioning through a couple more things, I welcome anybody if you have any, lessons learned, ideas that you'd like to share too, advice. Feel free to come off mute. But for the sake of time, I'll get through our last couple slides here and get you all on with the rest of your day. So just to recap from the beginning of this meeting, we will be sending information around the AICP credits here in the next little bit. As soon as we have them, I will send that in a follow-up email to you all. And this slide deck will also be coming your way shortly. And then I just want to plug a couple more Centralina Learns that we have coming up in the next month. Microtransit, all things microtransit at the beginning of September, and then urban plan for public officials. So there's a little bit of a blurb on each of them. Feel free to contact Sarah Neese for microtransit or Lynn Hare for the public officials piece of it. Or if you just want to reach out to me and I can get you connected, that's whatever works best for you. But look forward to seeing everyone at future events. And thank you again for attending today. Thank you again to our amazing panelists for all of their details, all of the resources you all shared. Just really appreciate everything that you all did today. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
Thank you.